Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hanson Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. It's good to see all of your faces again. We haven't met in a while, so welcome. Thank you for coming. I'll give you a brief update on sort of where we are, and then we'll proceed. We've got a couple of our standard end of the year transfers, and Town Accountant Todd Hassett has joined us for that. So thank you, Todd, for joining us. So, everyone is aware, town meeting is pushed to July 20th. We have the town election in which they'll decide the override here, June 27th, so a week from Saturday. And then that will be, I guess, sort of the first determination as to what kind of movement we're going to have in the budget. So Todd and I have been working with John Stambrook to figure out where we are. Everyone's aware we're sitting right now at an $865,000 deficit. That could go any number of different ways. And if you've seen some of the other chatter over the other sources or some of the other meetings, we could, if we get the override, it still has to be approved by both towns. So there's a lot of different things can sort of happen over the next month. So it's going to be a wait and see. But I wanted to get us together so we could just cover the brief agenda tonight, and I guess it's unusual because Todd has prepared his end of the year transfers, which we usually are able to meet in person, and they're usually after town meeting, but now we're doing end of the year transfers now. And so I guess the final point is, because town meeting has been pushed, we will go to a automatic 1/12 plus budget for the next month. And Todd, if you want to just explain what 1/12 plus is real quick, you do a far better job than I do.
Sure. So for any community or school district that does not have a budget approved by their town meeting or city council prior to July 1st, there's been legislation introduced for towns. This was common for public school regional districts and cities, but there's been recent legislation that allows towns to submit what's referred to as a 1/12 budget. And I have prepared one for the town of Hanson that will be going before the Board of Selectmen at their meeting next Tuesday evening. It requires a vote of the selectmen acknowledging that this is in place, and then there's a filing mechanism that I will go through along with the town clerk the day after the selectmen's meeting. And it has to be approved in theory by the director of the Bureau of Accounts, which is a subset of the Mass Department of Revenue, prior to the town being allowed to expend any funds after July 1st. So it's not simply taking the budget and dividing it by 12. We have to look at certain cash flow or seasonal expenses that we have. For example, as you know, our annual pension assessment is due July 1st to Plymouth County. So in the case of the pension, we will be making the full payment in July, not 1/12 of the payment. We also had to look at our debt schedule and when certain bond payments and note payments are coming due. And then certain other expenses are more seasonal, and some happen in the summer, like typically Camp Kiwanee, but not so much this summer. And then other things happen at other times of the year. So I've developed a budget that should give us spending approval to get through the month of July, essentially get to town meeting July 20th. And if for some reason we were not able to conduct town meeting in July, I would have to go through this process again with the selectmen and get it pre-approved for any spending for the month of August. There are some communities that are not having their annual town meeting until September, believe it or not. So in that case, they've got to submit 3 of these monthly so-called 1/12 budgets and get local and then state approval in order to have spending authority.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that. Anyone have any questions for Todd on the 1/12 budget 1/12 plus budget mechanism?
No, it makes
All right.
sense to me.
Okay, perfect. Then just so we don't have to keep Todd on the call the whole time, I'm going to just jump out of order and we're going to go right to I sent you all 4 end of the year transfers. If everyone could just take a look at that. I'd like to just look through them sort of one by one. And then if anyone has any questions, we can ask Todd. And once everyone's questions are answered, we can, make a motion on them at the end. That sounds good. Everyone have those?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so we'll look at in blue at the top, it says FY 20 tax 01 transfers from the water department expenses to the water department indirect costs. And Todd, what is this being transferred to to cover indirect costs?
Right, so this particular request from the water department is the result of during the fiscal year, they had a change in their staffing participating in the town's group insurance program. So they had an increase in participation. So their indirect costs essentially reimburse the general fund for anything associated with employee benefits, including health insurance and pensions. Also, the employer's share of Medicare tax, and also the water department's share of our property and liability insurance for any water facilities and or vehicle insurance for the fleet of water vehicles and equipment. So what's occurred in this, we had originally planned to take this to town meeting as part of our budget supplement article to transfer, but given that town meeting's after June 30th, the water department is in good shape. If you look at the left sort of side of each of these forms, that's where the funds are coming from. So they've identified savings this year in a number of lines so they're able to essentially not increase their overall budget, but ask you to consider moving these funds from various expense lines to cover the increase they've experienced in their indirect costs. And this will get them through, allow them to pay the indirect costs for the months of May and June.
Any questions for Todd? Seeing there are none, we'll move on to FY 20-02. Transfer from the communications overtime line to the communications training line. Explanation: required dispatcher training program not budgeted, may be eligible for reimbursement in FY 2021. So Todd, is this for last year's? We had
Yeah, again, this was a training program that all of our dispatchers had to participate in this year that the chief wasn't aware of when he put his budget together over a year ago. He's thinking that because some of the training may be relevant to the COVID pandemic, that we may be able to seek reimbursement through one of either the FEMA or the Plymouth County CARES federal funding programs, which we will pursue, but certainly any reimbursement would not come back to the town until much after June 30th. They do have savings in their overtime line, and they have also applied for a state 911 grant, but a lot of the state grants, some have been approved or some have been just sort of held up, I think for state cash flow purposes, to be honest. But so it's likely in the final analysis, we'll have this money paid back to the community next year and then some. But this is just required so that they're able to pay their final phone bills for the month of June to support the dispatch operation.
questions on FY 20-02? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one. FY 20-03, transfer from Norfolk Agricultural School tuition to South Shore Regional Vocational Assessment. Final assessment came in over the original budget. This one seems fairly self-explanatory. Todd, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Not really. I mean, this does happen occasionally, particularly with regional agreements. Things change, as you know. State aid may not be known at the time we go to town meeting, and in the final analysis, there may be some modification. We did have substantial savings in the agricultural school. We had fewer Hanson students attending Norfolk Aggie, so we've asked to just transfer some of those available funds to keep it in the education area, just to sort of balance out what we were required to pay to South Shore Voc Tech for our students attending there.
Questions for Todd? Seeing none, we will move on to the next one. Final transfer from Public Buildings Facility Management, $7,000, Planning Board Clerical Support, $3,000. Transfer to Town Administrator Salary, Assessors Clerical Support, Treasurer Clerical Support, Appeals Clerical Support, Inspection Building Salary, Inspection Clerical Support, and Library Clerical Support. Explanation: transition, overlap of town administrators, and buyback of accrued leave for former town administrator, and extra work day not budgeted. So this was, yeah, I remember we talked about this, Todd. When the budget was put together, it was overlooked that 2020 was a leap year. So that's where all that extra clerical support, and I think the town administrator line is fairly self-explanatory. Do you have anything to add, Todd?
No, as you know, when Mr. Stanbrook came on board in early January, the Board of Selectmen did opt to keep Mary for a period of about a month. So we did have overlap in salaries, and then she had buyback of unused leave, which took most of the month of February. As I say, the other ones are really just to do with that extra day, the leap year day. The larger departments also have experienced this, but they had flexibility within their salary budget to cover the extra day's pay. So these are the few smaller departments that do not have extra salary funds to cover that last day pay that we'll be paying in early July.
Thank you, Todd. Questions for Todd? Any questions on any of the 4 transfers? It was just 4, right, Todd? That's all I got from.
That's all we have, and we may have a couple of more for you in mid-July, depending on how things play out. The selectmen, I know, for example, are considering offering buyback of unused vacation to staff that were not able to take vacation during the pandemic. And in a few cases, again, those departments may not have adequate funds, or they didn't plan on any sort of vacation buyback. That John is still working out with council the language, because we certainly don't want to set a precedent to do this annually. But so that is going to sort of play out right near year end. So that may be another transfer we may present to you. We're also, carefully watching the landfill operation and the rec programs. They're particularly the rec program is lagging on the revenue side, but we've got them to contain their spending or curtail spending, and so we'll be dealing with, I think, one of the enterprises at town meeting. Other than that, right at this point, I'm not aware of any other transfers the committee may need to address. I can tell you that you still have all of the 4 before you tonight are from department to department, nothing from the reserve fund. And you still have $90,000 available within your reserve fund should the need arise between now and mid-July. We started the year with 100,000, and you did authorize an early in the year $10,000 transfer for the town administrator search executive
Right.
services.
Yep.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Todd? Seeing there are none, I'll entertain a motion. Mike, we still can't hear you. I think you're muted. I can see your mouth moving. So maybe Pat, Michelle.
There you go. Yeah, I'll say motion to approve. Are we doing all four at once? Motion to approve all four transfers as presented or as written.
Approve, motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve all four end of the year transfers and seconded. All those in favor, since Mike is on mute, I'd say will signify by raising your hand. Aye.
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 Opposed? Approved 4-0. So Todd, I will sign those and get them back to you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Does anyone have any last minute questions? I told Todd we'd give him 20. He could give us, you needed 20 minutes. We've got one more minute with him. So anyone else have anything final for Todd?
Stay healthy.
Yeah, stay safe.
That's right.
Thanks, same to you, and I'm happy to work with you, from now through town meeting, whatever you need.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too. All right. So next item on the agenda was the FY 2021 budget and article review. So we have the drafts of the annual and special town meeting warrants. So I wanted to go over a couple of those. We can't really dive too far into the budget because we're gonna have to wait to see what happens at the election on the 27th. Todd has made a few recommendations as to where, should the override be approved, the remaining cuts, he's made some recommendations, and we can talk about those when the time comes. But I think that we can I'd like to just do a first pass, get any initial questions out of the way that we want to ask and that we can bring back to either the town administrator or the town accountant. So I will start with the special town meeting, if everyone has that available.
Yep.
And we'll just start, we'll sort of go through them. I'll call out an article. If there are any questions, throw up a hand, say hold, we can discuss, or we can just move through it fairly rapidly. We're not going to be voting any of these just yet. We're going to just take a look at them and get our first pass round of questions out of the way, if that works for everybody. All right. Special town meeting, Article 1, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money to pay unpaid bills from prior fiscal years or to take any action therein. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money to supplement appropriations previously voted in Article 7 of the annual town meeting of May 6, 2019 for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 for the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. These funds are needed to cover the current fiscal year expenses at the transfer station. And that's sort of what Todd was talking about. It looks like another $35,000 in free cash will need to be allocated for the transfer station due to increased hauling fees, and that was the last word we got. Questions? Mike.
Now you're on mute.
You're muted right now, so are you using a laptop or you want to try going through the phone, your iPhone or something?
Dial in.
Pause to give Mike a chance.
What'd you say the number was, Kevin? Was it 35 for that?
Yes,
Like,
I sent
roughly.
over the verbiage and the spreadsheet. Right now, it is
Oh, yeah, I see it on the spreadsheet,
$5,000.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, I see it on the spreadsheet.
I can't tell if Mike is typing or.
Look like he's trying to dial in. Anybody got the Jeopardy theme song ready? Just kidding. Oh, there we go. Oh, we saw him for a second. Caller one has arrived.
Hello, hello, hello.
There we go. Hello.
You all missed me. I know you did. So on the 35, is that more just tied towards the hauling fees, the fact that the contract ran out, there was that 3-week trying to figure out what can work, any amounts renegotiated? Is that basically just tied to that and not labor or other expenses?
That's correct, sir. That's what I was told. It's the hauling fees, the renegotiation of all those items that you just mentioned.
Okay.
All right. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $55,000 to update the town's master plan or take any action therein. A master plan is a comprehensive long-range plan intended to guide growth and development of a community. It is the responsibility of the planning board to maintain the master plan and keep it updated. The town of Hanson's master plan is 12 years old and out of date. The town has completed many of the components that will go into the master plan and has received a grant from Old Colony Planning Council to start the process. This article will allow the planning board to hire a vendor to draft and complete the final master plan. And it's $55,000 from free cash.
Do we know what the grant's going to cover?
I do not, but we can ask that question.
I just don't know if it's going to be like a percentage or if they match or how it works. I was just curious.
Nope, that's an excellent question.
Oops.
Article 4, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $6,262 to reimburse the Whitman Hanson Regional School District to repairs made to the elevator at Indian Hill Elementary or take any action therein. This is $6,262 from free cash.
And that was a code thing, I think, too, right? They had to have that fixed to be compliant. I mean, makes sense. Got to do it.
Yeah.
Money's already out the door on that one already, right?
Yeah, it's already, from what I can tell, it's already spent.
Yeah, the repairs were already done. It's to reimburse the school district.
Okay.
Article 5, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $25,000 for the removal or replacement of sidewalks at the Indian Head Elementary School and or Hanson Middle School or take any action therein. $25,000, again, free cash. Bless you.
Thank you.
Article 6, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $37.50 for the purchase of a walk-behind blower or take any action related thereto. The highway department maintains a different town infrastructure throughout the year where this piece of equipment could be utilized. This will increase the efficiency of our crews due to many different tasks throughout the year. $3,750 from free cash. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $11,250 to purchase a highway berm curber or take any action in relation thereto. The highway department makes many repairs to the town's roads and highways throughout the year. Many of those repairs are related to damaged or missing berms. Currently, these types of repairs are done by hand, which is time consuming and cumbersome. The berm repairs are important to maintain proper roadway drainage for stormwater management and to help reduce flooding risk. This machine will increase production and quality of berm repairs in town. And it is $11,250 from free cash.
I wonder too if they anticipate any savings to potential overtime or things like that with being able to do that stuff a lot quicker, hopefully. I remember the last time we had the highway guy too, he was talking about some of the stormwater stuff, right? And a bunch of those different streets he had mentioned.
That's right.
So it seems like it's probably something there.
Yeah, no, I can ask the highway director that question.
That'd be good to know.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's something they'd want and need. They're just curious.
Yeah.
Article 8, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $10,000 for improvements to private gravel roads or take any other action in relation thereto. The Highway Department grades all private gravel roads in the town of Hanson 2 times per year to maintain public safety and emergency access. These funds are required for this purpose, as well as to fill potholes with suitable material between grading cycles. And that is $10,000 from free cash.
Is this one that pops up like every year, every other year? Or am I thinking of something different with the private roads?
I think we've seen this one in the past. I can't remember the periodicity of it, but I know we have seen this.
I'm not saying one way or the other regarding it. I was just curious. I feel like we've seen it before too.
Yeah, I think it
I
comes
would agree with you.
right. You, Mike?
I was just going to say I would agree with you, Patrick. And one thing I would say is that I think that amount's been fairly consistent when we have seen it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the number stuck out too to me. I don't know if it's the exact same, but it's been, from what I can tell, it's been pretty close. So makes sense.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $65,000 for stormwater management and MS4 related items or take any other action in relation thereto. These funds will be used for engineering, mapping, inspections, testing, screening, and surveying required for compliance with the town's municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, permit issued by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And this is $65,000 from free cash. Article 10, see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $9,000 for repairs to the parking lot located at 228 High Street or take any other action in relation thereto. The parking lot at 228 High Street is in disrepair. The pavement has buckled and there are numerous dips and divots. These funds will repave the parking lot and make repairs so that the parking lot is passable and usable. $9,000 from free cash. And this is the food pantry parking lot.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, my question was just clarity of what, was it just for general parking for like some of the trails, or was it the food pantry? I didn't know what the specific address was.
Yeah, it's the food pantry building there. It also has I think the beekeepers are in it, and
Yeah, I was gonna say the beekeepers and the garden too, right?
yeah, this is that parking lot right in the side there. I mean, I think you can use it to access the old Plymouth County Hospital property, but this is the parking lot they're talking about.
God, that's a lot for a parking lot.
It's a pretty good sized parking lot, I will say that.
Yeah.
Article 11, to see if the town will vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaws, Article 2, Tac 12, classification and compensation, by deleting sections 11A through 11 Echo in its entirety and inserting the new sections 11 Alpha through 11 Echo as printed as follows. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you have the chart. I'm sorry, the representations. This is more of a housekeeping article.
I was gonna say it looks like a lot of them aren't even changing. Just
Yeah, it looks like it's just that last section. Those are the highlighted ones that I see.
Yeah. It looks like for most of them, it's just the bottom number. A couple of them, the top number is getting bumped, but most of them looks like the bottom number.
Right.
But again, just for clarity, this is setting ranges, not specifically expending dollars.
Correct. Correct. This is just setting limits. Sorry, the explanation is at the very end. The changes to the compensation plan are in bold italicized text. The changes include adjusting the minimum range for all positions from 12 to 1275 to reflect the increase in minimum wage.
Makes sense.
And that is all we have on the special town meeting. Any questions, outliers about the special?
No, just one quick question, because I don't have it up now that I plugged my phone in for, was it Article 2 supplemental budget? Were there any specific numbers that went to that we need to talk about?
For the transfer station or the unpaid bills?
Unpaid bills, I guess.
Unpaid bills.
Is it the typical 2,500, or is it a bigger number that we should be looking at?
It's actually less. It's looked like right now.
$1,297.
I'm good. That's
Okay.
Thanks.
No, thank you. All right, if there are no questions, any further questions about the special, we will move on to annual. If you can pull up your sheets, there are quite a few more. You know, we will, again, there's still some that are up in the air. Not still left to be moved to the correct number, but we'll go through these relatively quickly. And again, if you have questions, want to discuss something further, call out, hold or raise your hand and we'll go back. Article 1, to hear reports of the various town officers, committees, special committees, and act thereon. Article 2, to see if the town will authorize the treasurer collector to enter into compensating balance agreements during fiscal year 2021 as permitted by Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 Foxtrot, or take any other action in relation thereto. And all these have no monetary value associated with them. To see if the town will vote to transfer $20,000 from overlay surplus for the treasurer collector tax title account or take any other action in relation thereto. This money will be used to cover the costs incurred for filing and advertising properties with delinquent taxes and also to pay any legal fees resulting from this process. $20,000 from the overlay. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to fix the salary and compensation of all paid elected officers and committees of the town as follows, or take any other action in relation thereto. This article sets the salary limits for the elected officials. Article 5 funds the salaries. And it has the salaries of both the town clerk and the tree warden. Article 5, to see if the town will approve the amended Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Agreement as stated below or take any other action in relation thereto. So this is fairly in depth. You can see the entire review on the sheet. I'm not going to read it. It's several pages long. But, this is the amended regional agreement that will need to be approved before our budget. Does anyone have any questions on this? I mean, it's a lot of language. It's a lot of discussion. It's where we are right now with the agreement for this year and going forward. But you can really dive into the weeds of it in there. It's all printed. Of the explanation. The Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee has proposed the above amendment to the existing Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Agreement. For FY21, 50% of the district's costs will be computed by the statutory method and 50% of the district's costs will be computed by the alternative method. In FY22 and thereafter, all of the district's costs will be computed by the statutory method. This article, if approved, will change the district agreement to allow for these calculation methods.
So basically what the committee's coming back and saying is, hey, we're going to go 50-50 and then we're moving full statutory the year after. And that's coming from the committee, not that regional group, like that subgroup they had put together, right? With a citizen from each
Correct.
town and all that stuff. This is coming straight from the committee.
Correct. This is the school committee's compromise agreement. There will also be the same article on the Whitman town warrant, annual town meeting warrant, which will need to be approved as well. And now I believe they've actually pushed their town meeting to the week after ours. Or, yeah, I believe it's ours is the 20th. I think theirs is the 27th now. I could be wrong. So, you know, we will know we will know where we stand with the override. This will need to be approved as well. And then Whitman will also have to approve it on their side for it to pass as is, without change. But that remains to be seen.
Do we know if one town passes and one doesn't, what the next steps are?
Yeah, it's got to go back. It doesn't pass. Both towns have to pass it.
All right.
So this is, so that's where we stand on that. A lot of moving pieces on this.
Yeah, it's going to be a moving target anyways. We'll see what happens.
Right. Article 6 is our standard budget article. I'm not going to read that right now in its entirety. I'll say it refers to the individual budget lines. So that number is still moving. You know, right now I think we're sitting at 28,202,476, I believe is where we're sitting right now for the budget. So, but again, I know Todd's still finalizing a couple of the numbers before we get there. So we'll have a couple more meetings to go through the general fund budget line by line and really.
Looks like Ken joined.
Sounds like it.
Hi, peeps.
Hey, we can't see him, but I hear him. Ken, welcome to the meeting.
I might be there now.
There he is.
I don't know if he knows he's on.
I can't see him, so I can hear him.
Oh, you think you just called? Oh, hey,
There he is.
Hey,
How you doing, Ken?
I'm good. How you doing? Sorry.
No, glad you could join us. We approved some end of the year transfers, and we'll be signing those and getting them off to Todd. We did a quick run through of the special town meeting warrant articles. Not too much out of the ordinary there. They're fairly self-explanatory, but you know, we can talk offline. I think we had one or two questions. Right now, we are going through the annual town meeting warrant, and we are on Article 7.
Okay.
So Article 7 is to determine whether the town will raise and appropriate by taxation the sum of $800,000 for the purpose of paying the town's set share of the FY21 operating budget of Whitman Hanson Regional School District. Provide, however, the amounts raised and appropriated hereunder shall be expressly contingent upon approval by the voters at an election of the so-called Prop 2.5 override question in accordance with the provision of Chapter 59, Section 21 Charlie of the Mass General Law, or take any other action in relation thereto. This is the override article. So it will need approval at the ballot and then approval again at town meeting. Ken, can you just hit mute on yours? I think we're getting some feedback through yours. There we go. Thank you. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Recreation Department during fiscal year 2021 under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, Foxtrot and a half. And below you can see the listed amounts for estimated revenues, estimated total revenues of $304,000, estimated total expenses $304,000. And you can see the individual line items, the increases or decreases, and some of this is up in the air, I'll say. The last meeting, the Recreation Commission and Recreation Director had not yet made any determination about the opening of Camp Kawani. So this could change again prior to town meeting, depending on whether or not they decide to open it this summer. I know there's a lot of questions up in the air with that, so this number could change, but right now those are the numbers we have.
Did they say if they're
Well,
taking?
I mean-
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Dugan.
My only point here is that, and I think you're covering it with the fact that the numbers are moving, is, if revenue theoretically could start July 1st, that 304 revenue number
Yes.
is already a number in jeopardy of the amount of weddings in July and August that may or may not happen. So to me, I think that I can't see that number not being restated or a more sensitized projection. But by the same token, it's you could be open in middle of July, you could be open in September. It's the part of that is still up in the air, and for a lot of legitimate reasons. So I don't know how I necessarily feel about the whole article as of right now, given that I think those numbers are still a moving target. My only concern is if looking at it as presented, if the revenue numbers aren't there, they pull back, and in essence, hard costs are ultimately then funded by the taxation contributed to that because you're not generating the revenue to help with those operating expenses.
Right, and that point was made. The town accountant has been discussing this with the recreation director, that we are already operating lower than we are. People are canceling their weddings. They're not doing the big weddings, and that is as you mentioned, the largest draw for revenue for the camp. Other questions? Article 9. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the transfer station during fiscal year 2021 under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, Foxtrot and a half. The total cost of operating the transfer station for FY 2021 is $373,024. Salaries, indirect costs, and a portion of the expenses will come from program revenues. The balance of the expenses will come from general taxation. And both of these enterprise accounts, I believe, there are no retained earnings. They are zeroed out. Any other questions?
No, I think it's just going to be an interesting year going into town meeting with both of these. It's such a unique situation that we're in for both of these different funds, the Article 9 and Article 8. It's going to be up to the townspeople to decide. Do they want to step up and support, or we'll see if the numbers become a moving target. So it's tough to really nail it down until we get closer to it, because who knows if we get wave 2 of this COVID stuff or whatever is going to happen. Do they close again? Do they open only to close again? And what can keep going? So we'll have to ride this wave and see where we get a little bit closer to it.
Yeah, great.
That's right.
Well, I think in this one, you have the flat or declining revenue from the bag sales. You have increased costs of hauling stuff away. So you've got one number going down, one number going up, and no retained earnings to plug a shortfall. So, it's in terms of how much room you have to do anything, as presented, it is what it is. And if we're sitting here a year from now, we're going to see the same story of a need for that amount of taxation. So I don't see that one going away. In recreation's case, theoretically, maybe they can, not theoretically, but they were booking the weddings. Netflix came in and did something else. There's sources of revenue there that could help increase and drive revenue, whereas I think revenues for this are basically flat with increasing costs. So we're going to see this year in and year out.
Right. And I believe after my discussion with the town accountant, this is the first time that retained earnings have been zero for both. There's now is another increasing argument to move these back into the town general fund if we're going to be paying for them through taxation anyway, and they're not going to. But another discussion on this. We go down this road every year. So, but any other questions, or we'll move on to Article 10. Article 10, CPC annual budget, $10,000. This article ensures that Hanson's community preservation accounts are compliant with the Community Preservation Act, which requires that a certain portion of the CPA funds be set aside for open space, community housing, historical projects, and recreation. In addition, it sets aside money for the administrative expenses of the Community Preservation Committee. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to adopt the capital improvement program as presented by the capital improvement committee, or take any other action in relation thereto. This is the article which approves the capital improvement matrix. And no, I do not have the capital improvement matrix. I will ask for it. Usually, I think last year they gave it to us walking into town meeting. So that's all I have on that. Article 12, to see if the town.
Kevin, on that, can we just, if that's a scenario of we get it at town meeting, it doesn't give us any time to digest it, but we've had conversations in the past about, are we voting to approve the article because we actually have it in hand, or voting to approve the information in it? So right. I think it's that time of the year again to clarify positions on that. Whereas again, if we see $20 million worth of potential expenditures in 1 year that we know we can't pay for, is this something that we recommend, or do we not recommend it because it's just not feasible? Or is it that, yes, we have the matrix, we have it, it gives us a guideline of what we can fund and can't fund, and that's what we're basing our recommendation on.
Will do, Mike. I'll ask those questions and get those answers for you. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and or transfer from available funds to the various department capital accounts for the following items, or take any other action in relation thereto. So it looks like we've got 10 items on there. For a total of $638,500. $568,500 coming from free cash, $70,000 from water surplus. And the explanations are provided beneath the matrix if you have any further questions. If there's anything you'd like me to ask the town administrator of the capital improvement committee, please let me know. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the capital accounts for the following Whitman Hanson Regional High School items, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 13 is the high school capital projects. It's $151,200, all from free cash. And you can see the various items in the matrix. 2 items. Questions? Article 14, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from the Community Preservation Committee's Historical Resources Reserve Fund for the purchase and placement of historical markers throughout the town, or take any other action in relation thereto. This is $7,000, and it will come from CPC funds.
Are those the kind of like those street corner signs that we see that are historical, or are there any particular ones that they're looking to put up? I mean, I'm fine either way, to be honest with you. I was just curious what they're looking to put up.
This just says this article is to fund placement of several historical markers throughout the town. So I don't know if it's just the town, the street ones, or if there are any other ones. I can definitely ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more out of curiosity. I mean, it's not a huge amount, but I was just curious.
Not a problem. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from free cash a sum of money to be added to the town stabilization fund, or take any other action in relation thereto. $50,000 free cash to stabilization. I don't have the balance of stabilization, but I will get that from the town account. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from free cash a sum of money to be added to the regional schools capital stabilization fund as established by the October 2014 special town meeting, or take any other action in relation thereto. The stabilization fund sets aside funds for the exclusive use of paying for capital improvements to the Hanson school buildings and the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School. This is $25,000 from free cash.
So Kevin, what's the difference between, so something like that, and then having the cash that we have to repay for, like, I think it was the roof for Indian Head and stuff like that? Is this just extra money that they put aside?
So this is, yeah, it goes into the stabilization account should something like that, for any sort of capital improvement that needs to be made to our buildings, or the high school. You know, any of the town buildings that come up, this is money that's put away if there's, you know, a major project that would need to be undertaken. We would use these funds to repair the schools. Did I explain that all right?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about the previous one that we went back and that we're kind of like paying back one of the funds because work that was already done. So I'm just trying to figure out the difference between like this fund versus.
Yeah, so the previous one you mentioned was money that was already it was appropriated, and now it's, you know, it's got to be, sorry, the work was done, it has to be appropriated and spent. So it was already sort of allocated, but now that was us, that's the money being spent.
Got it.
This is for unforeseeable things in the future that we don't really know. I don't know if I did a good job explaining that.
No, yeah, no, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure for me, I understood. So thank you.
Sure. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and enter into contract for the expenditure of any allocated or to be allocated funds by the Commonwealth or county pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 90, for the construction, reconstruction, and improvement of town roads. Said sum of money to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen to take any other action in relation thereto. This article is a requirement of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the town of Hanson to accept state funding, including Chapter 90 funding for accepted roadways. This article authorizes use of funds which will be 100% reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The budget approved each fiscal year by the legislature and governor establishes the total funding available for Chapter 90 local transportation aid for that year. These funds are then appropriated to the 351 Massachusetts towns and cities. Article 18, see if the town will vote to set the spending limit to the following revolving accounts in accordance with Hanson General Bylaw, Article 2, Tac 9, Section 3 as follows, or take any other action in relation thereto. This article sets the spending limits for the annual revolving accounts. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 25, Second G, okay, known as an act relative to veterans' benefits, rights, appreciation, validation, enforcement, or BRAVE Act, signed into law on August 28, 2018, which provides for a property tax exemption for any real estate that is the domicile of a person but is owned by a trustee, conservator, or other fiduciary for the person's benefit if the real estate would be eligible for exemption under Clause 22nd or Clause 22nd Alpha through Clause 22nd Foxtrot if the person was the owner of the real estate, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen on terms and conditions they determine to be most beneficial to the town to enter into a community choice agreement aggregation program and contract for the electric supply for Hanson residents and or businesses, and to execute and to enter into any and all documents necessary to effectuate the same as per Mass General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 134, or take any other action in relation thereto. The purpose of this article is to allow the town to buy electricity in bulk. Community choice or aggregation is a process by which municipalities can combine and switch electricity used by households and small businesses to cleaner energy. The Energy Committee will advise the Board of Selectmen and work in conjunction with an energy broker to purchase the energy the town needs. Residents and businesses can opt out of the program at any time. The electricity purchase will still be billed through National Grid. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to delete all references to the phrase highway surveyor in the town bylaws and replace those instances with the phrase highway director, or take any other action in relation thereto. The Wage and Personnel Board voted to change the title of highway surveyor position to the highway director position. The town's general bylaws still mention the title highway surveyor. This article will change the phrase highway surveyor to highway director everywhere it appears in the town bylaws. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to amend the Wage and Personnel Bylaws, Article 2, Tac 12, classification and compensation by deleting sections 12 echo in its entirety and inserting a new section 12 echo as printed below, or take any other action in relation thereto. The current Wage and Personnel Bylaws allow for unlimited sick leave for all covered employees. The employees hired in fiscal year 21 and beyond, for employees hired in fiscal year 2021 and beyond, this article would change the bylaw to allow for 1.25 days of sick leave for each month worked for full-time employees. It would also place a cap of 165 days as the maximum that one employee may accumulate in sick leave. No sick leave will be paid. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws by inserting a new section as follows, or take any other action relative thereto. Acceptance of this bylaw will allow the town clerk to make non-substantive renumerating changes to the town general and zoning bylaws that were approved at a town meeting and then subsequently by the Attorney General's office to correct non-substantive numbering issues.
That's just a clerical thing, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, all these last ones have really no monetary value. They become clerical. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaw, Article 1, Tac 1, articles relating to town meeting, Section 1 Alpha, by deleting those positions marked with crossed out as follows. The practice of setting the election at annual town meeting is antiquated and allows for very little flexibility in scheduling. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court to amend Chapter 41 of the Acts of 2006 and act establishing a town administrator in the town of Hanson as follows. And then there are several changes that they're looking to make in the following articles and the following line items. This amendment provides appointment power to a single appointing authority. The Board of Selectmen to streamline appointments and professionalize offices as is more consistent with employment practice around the state. This amendment modernizes the process and requires a majority vote. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to submit to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Legislature a home rule petition to allow the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District to continue to apportion Hanson costs through a per pupil assessment method or take any other action in relation thereto. Current Whitman-Hanson Regional School District amendment calls for the apportionment of costs by a per pupil alternative method. This article would direct the town to submit to the town's representative, the Mass General Court, a home rule petition to allow the town to continue to use an alternative method of cost assessment in the future. And then that is it. Article 27 was struck from it. It was the election article, but the election will have already taken place by the time we go to town meeting. That is all I have for annual town meeting. Questions, comments, concerns? Anything you want brought up? I believe the selectmen are voting on the warrant next week. I think next Tuesday night, they're having their meeting to go over the warrant articles. So we should know by then if there are any changes. And, at that point, we'll be a few days out from town election where we'll know the first step of where we are in the override process. But then we'll probably we'll have to get to our process after that. So, Ken, do you have a question?
I do not.
Sir. Anyone else? That is all I have on tonight's agenda.
Perfect.
Barring any other further questions, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.